Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in. Hope that you had an exceptional week. I hope that you got some things accomplished and you've moved closer to your goal, whatever that goal is. I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can, but what I want to do here is I want to talk to you about something that's immensely important. There are a couple of there are these things that if you've listened to me for any time that are extremely consistent in the way that I teach, in the way I address people, and in the manner in which I place priority and emphasis on certain principles that are important to achieving a level of success. And I don't define success for any one individual person. Every person has to determine in their own mind and in their own heart what success means to them, because it's going to be different based on your desires, based on what you perceive your purpose to be, based on your own particular standards. It's not to be measured against anyone else. It's to be measured against your potential. It's to be measured against your progress in achieving your full potential. And that's it. When success to me is having an idea of where you're going and progressing toward it. Every day that you progress, you're successful. I don't care how far you remain away from your goals. If you are progressing, you are successful. And that's something you've got to teach yourself, because the idea of being successful has a powerful force on the development of the confidence it needs, the self-confidence necessary to achieve higher levels. If you never celebrate achieving anything on a consistent basis, you're eventually going to feel the weight and the burden of not experiencing the emotion associated with success, and it's going to work against you. So every day, look for things that you did today that you hadn't done before. Look for things that say, hey, I wasn't this person last year. Hey, I've actually changed this. I'm better at this. And if you're consistently engaging challenges from a mental perspective, if you're consistently learning, consistently reading new material, consistently watching new educational videos, motivational videos, spiritual videos, reading, going to conferences, talking to a mentor, working with and the different ways that you can learn, then you're growing and you're progressing. And that's what's important. So what I want to talk to you about is one of the things I talk about all the time is you don't get what you want, you get who you are. So if you have something in your life, uh, hello, greetings, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. I hope that more people get to see this, but this is what I want to talk about. Um, there's this gap between who you are now, where you are now, what you're capable of now, and where you're trying to go. You've heard me say so many times, you can't count, that you don't get what you want, you get who you are. What does that mean? If there's something in your life that you desire to do and you haven't been able to do it, it's because you haven't become it. See, you get what you are. If it's becoming a millionaire, you've got to be capable of being a millionaire. And everybody has the potential, but not everybody has developed the capacity. What does that mean? That means that maybe I need to learn more about finance. Maybe I need to get an understanding of what it means to be economically literate and sound. Maybe I need to make better connections with people who could put me in the right positions to make the right moves. Whatever it is, I don't have it in place now, but there is the ability to go get it. And the thing that exists between who you have to become and where you are now is the gap. It's the performance gap. It's the capacity gap. And it represents potential unactualized. So what does that mean? You have to manage the gap. You have to be able to say, okay, this is who I am now. That's who I want to become. And then understand the steps you have to take to get it. Be committed to taking the steps. Be committed to making changes. Be committed to changing how you think, how you move, how you operate. Be committed to monitoring and evaluating your self-talk on a regular basis to make sure that your self-talk is in alignment with your idea of what you want to become, because your self-talk is indicative of your thinking and your thoughts are who determine who you are. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And no matter who you are, no matter what faith you hold, it's this simple. Your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny. They are literally the genesis of your future reality, and you are creating them every day. How are you thinking? Or is your thinking in alignment and conducive to developing into what you want to become in order to have what you want to have? So you can never get, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. Are you where you need to be to have what you want? If you haven't been able to get it, probably not. You've got to be aware of who you are. And then you've got to be aware of where you're going and what it costs to get there and what it takes to stay. And then that's what you work on. You have to manage the gap. And that's where most people don't get it. Most people think that if I just wish for it, the wish factor will play out, but it never does, because it's not what you wish for. It's not even what you want. It's about what you prepare to become. See, what you're able to produce is simply a result or a product of who you are. See, the beauty of success is not what you get, but who you become. We lose ourselves in things. We lose ourselves in celebrating accolades. You know, I got my degree. I bought my new house. I got my new car. I started my new business. I bought this here. I did that. And we associate that with success and being the end game. That is a byproduct of what you become. The ultimate thing is in becoming, because the more I become, the greater the capacity to impact the lives of other people. And that's where true growth and fulfillment comes from. It's nothing wrong with being paid for being good at what you're good at. But if it doesn't benefit people in a way that it extends beyond that to where you are passionate about it and to where your greatest experience isn't the money you make, but the lives you change, then that's something you've got to look at. But, you know, I've already done 2 sessions today, and this came up in both sessions. And so that's why we're talking about it now. It's this gap. Actually, I heard it first from a guy by the name of Tom Bilyeu. If you haven't heard of him, it's a dude, man, his life story is unbelievable. Started out, struggled in school, wasn't that good. I mean, got the lowest possible score you can get on the SAT. I mean, just a bunch of different things. His mom encouraged him to go off to school, but and then when he got off and he really fought to stay in school and be good at what he did, and he was actually succeeding despite having poor grades and being a poor performer in school, he was just hunkered down because he felt school was something he needed to be what he wanted. He was winning, and his mom kept saying, "Why aren't you coming home?" And he asked her, you know, "Why did you tell me to go off to school if you're going to keep pressuring me?" And she told him in a real non-matter-of-fact way that I actually thought you were going to fail. So I was encouraging you to go out there because I didn't want you to have any regrets of not trying, but I thought you were going to fail. That's the environment he grew up in. He's worth somewhere around 400 million now. He eventually started his own company in the nutrition industry, and now he runs this YouTube channel called Impact Theory. Dude is off the chain when you really look into his background. A lot of people have heard him, but saw him do interviews. He does a lot of interviews of other people, but nobody really knows who he is. This dude is worth almost $500 million. And he was a person that his mom expected to fail. But he talks about this gap. And it applies exactly to my philosophy of you don't get what you want, you get what you become. So what you become and who you are now represents 2 ends of a spectrum. And in between is the gap that's going to determine whether or not you get what you want. If you close the gap, you get closer to what you want. As you close the gap, you get to experience new realities that are indicative of change and advancement. So you are consistently finding a reason to celebrate, even though you haven't totally or completely made it to the point that you desire to get to. And then there should also be this other thing, the understanding of what's on the other side of what it is you desire. In other words, I have who I am and what I want in life, and meaning what I need to become or who I need to become in order to have certain things I desire. But we must also know that on the other side of reaching this is a whole new reality and a whole nother set of possibilities. So you never, ever truly arrive. So if I want to be, let's see, something that people talk about, I want to be a 6-figure earner. So I go out and I do the things I need to do. I go back to school or whatever it is. I study. I become more refined in my area of expertise. I become more valuable to the people who pay me, whether it's a job, a corporation, or my own clients that contract me. I'm increasing my value to my market. And therefore, I have now, by increasing my value to my market over time, took my earnings from wherever it was initially to six figures. Here's the thing. There's a whole nother world beyond the six figures. There's a whole nother challenge beyond the six figures. There's a whole nother opportunity that's beyond the six figures if you're focusing on money. What if you say, I want to take my marriage to the next level? So as a man, you decide, well, I'm going to do this with my wife from now on. We're going to have this once a week. We're going to do this. And you start developing into a person that's more understanding, more listening, more attentive, more willing to make sacrifices. You take your ego out of the equation, and you get this new idea of what is in your relationship, and you and your wife are experiencing a whole new level of love. It's something beyond that. There's always room to grow. There's always room to be better. There's always room to take it to the next level. And it's so many different ways it can be done. You're never, ever at a point where you can't grow. And the moment you get that, and one of the things I love about my wife is she always talks about being a lifelong learner. It's always her looking into something. And now she's off into my field, and she's digging up and reading. And I'm so giddy because now she's playing in my world, and I see the force of what she's gaining and how it's drawing us closer together. So then I'm in her world, and I'm learning. And this is just in the air. This isn't even about how it's benefiting us financially. It's about how it's benefiting us emotionally, psychologically, and drawing us close together as a unit. And all of these things are possible. I'll tell you something. There's a gap, and you've got to close the gap. You got to be able to manage the gap. Here's another one that I can use as a personal analogy. I wrote my first published article as a 16-year-old in high school who was on the football team, but also a part of the journalism department. And my journalism teacher was the wife of one of my coaches. And she knew my story because her and her husband had discussed that I didn't know my father, and my father had passed away and I never knew him. And that my great-grandparents were rearing me, and while they were doing a great job, there was this big, wide age gap. And so they took an interest in me, loved on me, spent time with me personally, picked me up on the weekend, and showed time in me. And one of the things that my journalism teacher encouraged me to do was write an article about the absence of my father and how it impacted me. And the article was entitled The Invisible Father. Well, some years later, I had always said after writing that article, she not only published it in the school newspaper, she published it in a couple of local publications outside of the newspaper, and she got it published in Teen Magazine, which is national. And so that gave me the feeling of, man, I can write. And so I said I was going to write a book. Well, eventually I got to it, and I wrote my first book, which was The Invisible Father, Reversing the Curse of a Fatherless Generation. Still in circulation on Barnes & Noble in digital form. I'm about to bring it back to print. But anyway, it's the first book, right? So my goal was, when I decided, okay, I'm going to write this book, my goal was to write the book. And at some point become a prolific author, so a person that had published multiple books. But the first thing was getting to publishing one book. And there's this gap. I had to gain the knowledge, the experience, the commitment, and other things that was outside of the story I wanted to tell. It was a bunch of things of putting a bunch of things together and becoming that. But then after I got the book published, there's a big gap between being a published author and a prolific author, and what I had to put together. So I had to, again, close a gap. I had to become a person that had a system, that had a way and a mechanism of taking my ideas and putting them in order and being able to pump out books that were quality books that delivered a message that helped the audience that picked it up and read it to get to where I'm at now, book number 20. And I've got 3 more that are already in my mind that I'm going to put out over the next 18 months. And that's just one area I operate in, but it's closing the gap. It's saying, this is where I'm at. This is what I want to do. What does that person look like? And how does it measure up against who I am now? What does the person who's getting everything I want at this point in my life, how does that person look? What skill sets do they have? What connections do they have? What mindset do they carry? How do I measure up to that now? What do I need to change to be that person? And what's the way to get there with the greatest consistency and the greatest force? That's what I do with my clients is I say, okay, this is where you are now. That's what you want. This is what this person looks like. So this is where you've got to get. This is the steps we're going to take to get you there. We're going to manage your gap as effectively as we know how. We're not going to dance around. We're not going to hope for opportunities to fall out of the sky. We're not going to sit around and hope somebody recognizes or discovers us. We're going to work a plan that nobody else has to validate. Nobody else has to approve. Nobody else has to tell us it's okay. We are going to set the standard of what we're going to accomplish, and we're going to work it consistently every day until we get to that point. It's that simple. If you don't manage the gap, you're never going to experience the true fullness of what you're capable of and what you desire in life. It's not about having a break. You create your breaks. You create your opportunities. You set the course of your life by the way you think, by the way you talk, by the way you behave, and then you gain ground accordingly. So in essence, and I'm almost done here. In essence, what I'm trying to get across to you is, you have your future in your hand. Stop thinking life is happening to you. Life is responding to you. Life is responding to your expectations. Life is responding to your thoughts, the way you talk, the way you think. Life is responding to all of the energy you're emitting in one form or another. If you want something different, change your thinking, change your talk, change your expectations, change the standard at which you engage life. Hello, hello, how you doing, Suzette? Change your life, change your expectations, change your work. And when you find that you start to change the way you view life, when you start to change your expectations, when you start to place a high demand on yourself, you will find that things around you begin to change. You change your situation by changing yourself. You don't look at the outer world and expect the outer world to change. You change you ultimately in changing your situations, changing your circumstances, changing the world in which you're in by your impact and your force. Stop believing life is happening to you. It's not. Life is responding to you and happening for you if you allow it. But it's definitely happening. It's definitely responding to you. It's responding to the way you think. It's responding to your, hey, Regina, uh, it's responding to your expectations. It's responding to how you view life, your paradigm. It's responding to the energy and the effort you put into anything. You can't expect something that you're not invested in, that you're not building sweat equity in, that you're not trusting, that you're not moving forward. You cannot have something for which you do not believe you are capable. You cannot present something that you're not, which you do not believe you are capable of having and get it. The very expectation of failure guarantees failure. It is only in believing that I can do this that you set the course, set the environment, set the expectation, and create the reality. It is in managing the gap that you create the reality. There's this gap, and I'm going to say this and I'm done, so that you have heard it at least 5 times over the course of this video. There's this gap between who you are now and what you must become in order to execute your why, or execute what it is you desire. There's a gap. You are this person now. It requires that person over there, and you got to figure out how to get there. That's called managing the gap. Wasting your time in the gap, doing things that have nothing to do with moving you forward. Stop wasting your time fretting and worrying. It doesn't move you forward. Stop wasting your time dealing with negative people who have nothing positive to add. It doesn't move you forward. Stop focusing on things that have nothing to do with the things you really truly want in life. That's a waste of time. Manage the gap. Invest in knowing more. Invest in gaining more. Read more. Learn more. If you're able to hire somebody that can expedite the process, do it. That's one of the greatest investments you can do. And nobody's ever going to invest in you if you don't invest in yourself. It's that period. You're going to have some sweat equity in. In many cases, you're going to have some capital invested in you before people will start to invest in you. Nobody's going to look at you and say how awesome you are and invest in you if you haven't invested in yourself. Because while they may be able to see the potential, there's nothing about you that says you're committed enough and have any skin in the game that will make it a worthwhile investment. If you have worthwhile investment for someone else, if you want somebody to invest in you, invest in yourself. Invest in yourself in a way that people can see you're willing to put everything on the line, that you're willing to take risks with what's coming out and what's going on. Nobody's going to do that for you. You have to set the tone of how people perceive you. You have to set the tone of what people see in you. You have to set the tone of the standard at which people will have to operate in your periphery. With that being said, look, I'm going to get off of here. I encourage you to share the video. If you haven't gotten the book, Critical Mass, the link is there. For those of you who haven't ever taken advantage of my breakthrough sessions, we are doing it again where the first breakthrough session is on me. And then we decide whether or not I'm somebody you want to work with after the fact, but the first one's on me. That information and what you need to fill out and where you need to email it to is there. And also, I am doing a live online conference where I will be the lead-off speaker, keynote speaker for Body by God in a conference called No Excuses. And that's going to be on November the 9th. If you want to sign up for that 2-day event, the link is there as well. I think that's it for now. What I want to get you to truly understand is that you are in control of your destiny. So when you say you're in control of your destiny, that removes the ability to point the finger and blame somebody. That removes the capacity for playing the victim and removes the idea that someone else controls where you're headed. Yes, there's opposition out there, there's resistance out there, there are pit holes and obstacles and so much more that you're going to have to contend with. But the ultimate thing is you're still in control. You maintain the personal sovereignty and the decisions that you choose to make and the direction you choose to take. And that's going to determine your path. That's going to determine where you end up. Nothing can stop a destiny. That's the beautiful thing about the word destiny. Your destiny means that you're destined to achieve something. Your destiny means that the more someone or something tries to stop you, it only ensures that it happens by becoming a part of your destiny. With that being said, look, I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to make a move and make some things happen. Today is an extremely busy day, but I want you to take a step today towards being something different or becoming closer and managing the gap to getting to who you want to be. Manage the gap. Manage the gap. It's that simple. With that being said, I'm going to check out here. As I always say, I'm going to live my life on full so that I die on E. I don't want to leave anything left behind, not one book, not one lecture, not one class, not one course, not one training session. I don't want to leave all of the things that have been placed inside of me on the table because I didn't have the courage to go out and make it happen. So I live my life on full. I wake up every day early in the morning while most people are still asleep, and I put in the work. I go after it until I get it. There's no negotiating or compromise in the standards that I've set for my life. When I set my mind to do something, I'm either going to get it or I'm going to die trying. Those are the options. I'm going to keep going until I get it or I collapse and die. It's that simple. Now, what happens in the interim of all of that is me committing to being what I need to be. Understanding that if I haven't done something yet, it's because I haven't become it yet. And then focusing on what it takes to become it. And not getting deterred because it's taking time. I won't surrender my sweat equity because of how much time it's taking. I understand the longer it takes me, the better it is when I get it. I'm challenging you. Step up and make today the day that you change. The day that you stop making excuses about what you can't do and all the reasons why, and say, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to make it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to have it. And that's the end of the discussion. When your heart gets there, your head gets there, when your expectations get there, your life will change forever. With that being said, I'm out of here.